Guess what, Fun? My brother's getting married next month, so I'm going back to the United States for the wedding.
That's great. What sort of wedding is it going to have?
It's going to be a pretty traditional American wedding.
What's a traditional American wedding like?
Well, usually it's held at a church. My brother is going to get married at a very nice old church in our town. And there are going to be about 100 guests.
That sounds like a lot. What usually happens on the wedding day?
Well, the bride gets dressed, often at her parents' house. The groom can't see her in the wedding dress until the ceremony. Traditionally, brides wear white. Usually, there are a few women called bridesmaids. They help the bride during the ceremony, and their dresses must be a different color than the bride's dress.
Do they buy their dresses or rent them?
They buy them, so it can be quite expensive. When it's time for the wedding ceremony, the guests arrive at the church and wait for the bride. The friends of the bride sit on the left side, and the friends of the groom sit on the right. Then the groom arrives at the church. He has a male friend or relative with him who is called the best man. Sometimes there are other men in the wedding group. They're called the groomsmen. They wait for the bride to arrive.
I see. So the wedding group consists of the bride, the groom, some bridesmaids, and some groomsmen.
That's right. Then the bride arrives. Her father walks her to the front of the church as the wedding music is playing and the ceremony starts. The bride and the groom kiss when the ceremony is finished. Then they leave the church. As they leave the building, the guests gather and throw rice at them for good luck. Then the guests go to the reception, which might be held at a hotel or restaurant. At the reception, there will be food, speeches, and dancing. Toward the end of the reception, the bride throws her flower bouquet to all of the single women at the party. The woman who catches it is supposed to be the next person to get married.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I just got back from my sister's wedding. She got married in Bali.
Really? Why did she get married there?
Well, that's where she and her husband met. So they wanted a Balinese wedding. It was on the beach. It was really wonderful.
Wow, I would love a wedding like that.
Yeah, they both wore traditional Balinese costumes and looked really beautiful. The ceremony started with everyone gathering around a small temple near the beach. There were some men playing lovely Balinese music. Then after the wedding ceremony, we all walked along the beach and threw flowers over the bride and groom.
Oh, it sounds lovely. I hope you took lots of photographs.
2.
I went to a very unusual wedding the other day.
Really?
Yeah. 2 of my friends are really good scuba divers, so they wanted to get married underwater.
You're kidding. How did they do that?
Well, there were about 20 guests, and we were in a glass-bottom boat in a beautiful, quiet bay on the coast. The bride, the groom, and the guy who married them were in wetsuits, and they jumped into the water and swam under the boat. We all watched the ceremony through the glass. It was amazing, because there were beautiful fish swimming around as well. Then, after they were married, we all went to a restaurant near the beach and had a fun party. It was fantastic.
I don't think I'd like to get married underwater. I'd prefer a traditional wedding. 3.
I just returned from my best friend's wedding. It was a drive-up wedding. They wore traditional clothes, but they never even got out of the car.
I've never heard of a drive-up wedding. Why did they choose that kind of ceremony?
Well, they didn't have a lot of money to spend, but they wanted to remember the day forever. It was certainly different.
That's so funny. I'd love to have a drive-up wedding.
Well, it was fun, but I'd rather have a big wedding.
4. So how was that wedding you went to last weekend?
It was interesting and very unusual. The couple and all the guests dressed in jeans and cowboy hats, and we all rode on horses to a waterfall.
Really? Why did they want to do that?
Well, the bride and groom love horses, and they had their first date at that waterfall. It was very romantic.
So what happened?
We all met at the riding club and rode to the waterfall. They had the wedding ceremony there with the bride, the groom, and everyone else on horses. It was really fun, although the horses and the waterfall were so noisy that I couldn't hear the couple when they said their vows. After that, we all rode back to the clubhouse for a reception. A band was there playing country music. We danced all night.
It sounds like fun, but I'd prefer a more traditional wedding. I can't ride a horse.
Would you prefer a traditional wedding or a non-traditional wedding?
I'd prefer a traditional wedding.
Would you rather have a big wedding or a small one?
I'd rather have a big wedding.
Would you rather have a long engagement or a short one?
I think I'd prefer a long one.
Really? I wouldn't.
2.
Would you prefer to have a big wedding or a small wedding?
I'd prefer a small wedding. I don't really like weddings when they're too big.
Neither do I.
3.
What kind of wedding music would you like to have? Traditional or modern?
I'd rather have traditional music at a wedding.
Yeah, I would too. It's much nicer.
4.
Would you rather have a wedding here or overseas?
I think I'd prefer to have one overseas.
Yeah, me too.
5. Who would you prefer to marry? Someone older than you or younger than you?
Someone a few years older, I think.
Really? I'd prefer someone a little younger, I think. 6.
Would you rather marry someone who is very similar to you?
No, I'd rather marry someone who is a bit different from me. It would be more interesting.
Yeah, so would I.